All right. Then let us begin. And besides, we're here, or we've got enough here. So let us begin with introductions. Thank you, Sheila.
Good evening, Eitan.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the December 2024 meeting of the Advisory Panel on Racial Disparities in the Criminal and Juvenile Justice Systems. Let us do our Hollywood Squares introductions. I will go through my screen, starting with Todd.
If I can come off mute, Todd Delos, he, him pronouns. I am the Director of Policy for Attorney General Charity Clerk.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Judge Morrissey.
Hi, I'm Mary Morrissey. I'm the Judiciary's representative on this committee.
Great, thank you. Lisa.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Lisa Ryan, she, her pronouns. I am the Community Inclusion Director at the Vermont Criminal Justice Council.
Right, great. Thank you. Susanna.
Hi, Susanna Davis, Racial Equity Director for the state.
Great. Christine Hughes.
Hi, everyone. I'm Christine. I am the director of the Richard Kemp Center and happy to be here with you all.
Great. Thank you. Daniel.
Hey, Sergeant Dan Bennett with Vermont State Police. I work with the Fair and Impartial Policing Unit with Dr. Nasruddin Longo.
Great. Grant.
Hi, this is Grant Taylor. I'm here as a community member representative for the panel.
Thank you. Sheila.
Sheila Linton, she, her pronouns, panel member and executive director of the Root Social Justice Center.
Great. Derek. Derek, you're on mute.
You hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, good. It was the wrong microphone. Hi, Derek Miedevnik. He, him pronouns, community and restorative justice executive representing Vermont Department of Corrections. Good evening.
Great. And the next person is, I'm assuming, Rebecca at 79329, etc.
Yes, thanks, Eitan. Rebecca Turner, Appellate Defender, Office of the Defender General, panel member. Sorry I can't be there by video. I'm in transit.
It happens. Thanks a lot. Representative Burrows.
Hi, I am Representative Elizabeth Burrows. I was asked to attend this evening by Angela Arsenault and Coach Kevin Christie, both representatives.
Right.
Thanks.
Right. Thank you. And last but not least, Anthony Jackson Miller. Anthony? One more time for Anthony Jackson Miller.
Well, Anthony Jackson Miller. I'm with the RDAP and just here attending.
Okay, thank you. All right. That leads us into a discussion of the minutes. There's a lot of me talking in this meeting, and I'm sorry about that. As you all know, Grant has become a full panel member. He's the community member. He does not, thus, with that and the rest of his life, have time to do the minutes as marvelously as he has done them. So we're looking for a new minutes person. And I tell you this not only to let you know of the change, but also to see if anyone has any ideas, knows of any particular candidates or such who would be interested in doing this. There is some, what shall I say, nominal pay involved. Is that the right term, Todd? Okay. and we'll figure that I'll get that amount down from you later. But if you know someone who would be interested in this, someone who's interested in data, someone who's interested in social justice, racial justice, please send them our way. Because we could use that, please. So that's what I have to say about the minutes. Any questions? Any comments?
I have a comment, Aton. This is Sheila.
Yes.
I was wondering if we could maybe put it out to the VTPOC network too, just to see. It would be a good hit maybe to just get that out there as like a little side gig. And
Great
there's
idea.
probably lots of people on there that probably are capable, whether they want to do it or not, I'm not sure, but you know, I think it's a good resource.
That's a really good idea. Thank you. Thank you. Send me the good email, would you please, Sheila?
Yeah, I'll send you the general and the personal of the directors.
Okay, thank you. Because I get screwed up somehow when I do it. Okay, any announcements? I have one. Tyler won't be here, obviously. He is unavoidably detained this evening, but will listen later on YouTube. Those are the two announcements that I have. Otherwise, I'd like to go deeper into the introduction into Lisa Ryan, the Community Inclusion Director, newly hired at the Vermont Police Academy. Lisa, have anything you want to say or anything to us that would be... I'm putting you on the spot. I do that a lot.
That's okay. Hi, everybody. I know some of you, but not all of you, so it's good to be here. As Aton said, I am the new Community Inclusion Director for the Vermont Police Academy and the Vermont Criminal Justice Council. So I will be working on fair and impartial policing initiatives and policies, community engagement between police departments throughout the state and their local communities, kind of bridging that gap, allowing for some more transparency. And then working really closely with Susanna's office on some data and data analysis that we're really looking forward to analyze this next year, really. So I've only been here for 3 weeks. I live in Rutland. I grew up in Rutland. In my previous role, I was the Associate Dean for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Vermont Law and Graduate School. So again, this is a new position at the VCJC. So I'm really feel lucky to be in this position. I'm really excited about it. And I'll just put a plug in that we're also hiring for a fair and impartial policing instructor. So if any of you know anybody, please send them my way. Thank you. I look forward to engaging with this group.
Great. Thanks, Lisa, and welcome. Okay. Moving right along. I don't expect that we'll be here the full 2 hours. I know that crushes all of you. But I just and here is Judge Davenport. Judge Davenport, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I am Judge Davenport. I'm here as a member of the Council for Equitable Youth Justice. We a long time, our executive director was a longtime member of RDAP, Elizabeth. She has moved on. We are in the process of getting a new director, I hope. Yes, I think, but it's been a long hiring process. But anyway, nice to be here. Liz Ryan, I'm so happy to see you. We know each other from the laws from the Vermont Law and Graduate School.
Hi, Amy. Good to see you too.
Good to see you.
Okay, thank you. The first item, and I'm really going to make this as quick as I can. Some of you may have seen that, I don't know if anybody went on YouTube or anything like that. On the 21st of November, I testified in front of the Joint Judicial Oversight Committee. It went quite well, I thought. I felt a lot of buy-in to what I was saying. I pretty much said what I sort of sketched out here off the top of my head at our last meeting last month, but I got a little more involved and made a PowerPoint presentation of 4 slides to sort of depict the last time, well, not the last time, one of the last times in American history that there's been an influx of immigrants, and then concomitantly or coevally, really, a moment where people believed that crime was off the charts, and there was a sort of always an underlying supposition that this crime is caused by immigrants. Um, I used the example, long story that I'm not going to get into. I originally wanted to write my dissertation on Irish American music and identity, and I was not allowed to do it by my advisor for the simple reason that in the city of Chicago, I would have gotten killed walking into some of the bars that I would have needed to go into. So I know a fair amount, though, about this. And so what I did to talk about immigration was talk about the Irish immigration from around 1870 to about 1915, 1910. It becomes a different wave after that. And to talk about how these were people who were refugees literally from terror, from economic immiseration caused by British colonial practices in Ireland, that produced the Irish potato famine and starved many people to death. And that when they got here, they were thought of as apes, and literally apes. One of the slides depicted an Irish person looking like an African person, by which they would mean sub-Saharan African, and a caricature, because it looks like an ape. It doesn't look like any human I know. And that was how the Irish were depicted. There was panic. And I asked the question about whether or not that could be going on now, that suddenly the FBI statistics look like, to people as though they're not real. Everyone has good reason to believe that they're not real. We have not had time, any of us, to really look over those things and make such a determination. And my point was, there lies the tragedy, that the legislature has a body like this composed of governmental actors plus community members that are eager to do this kind of work, that are statutorily required to do the kind of work that should have happened last session, when that literal tsunami of bills came through that had major social justice implications. That at that time, the legislature didn't call on one social justice group throughout the state, with the exception of NAACP Rutland, once, by the way, not twice, not 3 times, which would have been warranted, but once, and shut down other conversations that I witnessed myself on YouTube when the issue of brain science came up regarding the age limitations. I mean, and this was stuff that was, Piaget wrote this stuff back in the 60s. This is a commonplace. It's not, you don't need to be a brain scientist to get this. I said that I didn't think I was a bit more passionate than I intended. I said I don't, we're not window dressing. We're not window dressing. We have said not about us, without us, since the pyramids were considered new construction. And that doesn't seem to ever get through. We have talked about the speed at which the legislature proceeds as being antithetical to what the RDAP can do, and that hasn't gotten us anything. And I just kind of got angry. I wasn't screaming. I didn't go into angry black man. I just got angry. I just had a moment. I thought it was important to point out the historical parallels, to wonder about what we might have known had we done the work, had we been allowed to do the work, had we been invited to do the work. Indeed, we set up as a panel the Division of Racial Justice Statistics to handle things just like this. We weren't allowed to do that. I did ask whether Justice Reinvestment 2 actually meant anything, given that it seemed to be at least ignored, or maybe forgotten. And that seemed pretty alarming to me, given that that was barely 2 years ago. Barely 2 years ago. So I then concluded by saying that there is an incongruity between the way the legislature does business and is constructed and the way that the RDAP does business and constructed. And I don't really need to go into that with you all know that well. And that something had to be done. We did not have the answer. They clearly do not on their own have the answer. Somewhere in the middle has to come an answer, to try to get us somewhere closer to the same page. Because as you all remember, there were moments last session where we were given 80-page bills and asked to read them overnight. And I mean, I know you all started laugh. I still remember Witchy's face when I said that to him. It was the most scathing look of like, are you kidding me? 80 what? You know, anyway. And I just sort of said, we need to get beyond that. We need to make this more digestible for both groups. I don't know what that looks like. I mean that. I think there's going to be a lot of creative thinking that has to go on, and not just for the sake of the thinking itself, but for the sake of the work that this panel is entrusted with. Are there any questions anyone has? Any comments? Anything of that sort? I can send you my outline if anyone wants to look at it. It's not very well written.
I just want to say
Nothing.
thank you.
Yep, you're welcome, Sheila. You're welcome. Great. Thank you. Thank you all. Then we're going to go right on to the next part. The continuation of the discussion concerning the... Oh, no, wait. I did have a good talk with Martin Lalonde. He gave me a marvelous rundown of what he thinks are the legislative priorities for this coming session. I always love that, you know, in December and November, because it's kind of a aspirational list rather than an actual list, if you take my meaning. He's hopeful that this is what will transpire. He's given me a report that Crime Research Group, and you'll all remember them. I think those of you who aren't brand new, they contract often with the state. We've worked with them on this panel a lot. They helped us stand up the Division of Racial Justice Statistics with their own research, which was very, very helpful and lovely. And they, a former member of the RDAP, Monica Weber, who was Department of Corrections at that time, is now their executive director. She says hello to everybody, by the way. In any event, they wrote a report on Act 40, which came out. That was another product of last session. I will forward that to all of you so that you can take a look at it. You'll look at the first page and get intimidated. Don't. It's 11 pages long. It's 11 pages long. It's not like an RDAP report. So, anyway, I will forward that to you. Having said that, speaking about forwarding things, Representative Lalonde is also going to get draft bills that are being worked on and that are hoped for, again, aspirational, to me as things progress, like literally probably sometime this week. they won't have numbers on them even. I mean, it's like looking at, I don't know, a bundle of cells before it becomes anything else. It's great. They won't have numbers, they won't have titles, but we will have a sense of what's going on. And I think that that's really important. It's a good first step, I think, in trying to get us more in sync with what's going on. With the legislature, it'll give us a bit of a head start, I'm hoping. If anyone else has got any ideas here, man, this is the time to run them through because my brain's going to run dry soon. I'm just letting you know. There's only so much juice in there, and the older I get, the drier it gets. So, if anybody's got some ideas here about what we can do here to make that difference in structure between the legislature and this panel less pronounced and make it perhaps even productive, this is the time to put it forth, man, because we really could use it. I
Hey,
think that we
hey, Tom?
started well. Yes.
It's Rebecca by phone.
Hi, Rebecca by
Awkward.
phone.
I'm sorry. You invited some suggestions on this
Please.
point, and I appreciate the chair's willingness to share draft bills with our panel as soon as he can, and it sounds like it's going to be soon. I'll be curious how you intend to share them with the panel. Are you going to collect them? Are you going to turn them around right away? But also, I guess my request is if you continue to have a conversation with the chair, if he has a sense of which bills will get higher billing on at least his committee's agenda, that we could prioritize within
Yes.
that group. Because
Thank you.
I expect that there'll be more than 5.
I would imagine he did mention more than 5. Yes. Thank you very much, Rebecca. I'm going to put that in so that I don't forget because Lord knows I will. Thank you.
And one more follow-up to that.
Oh,
Tom.
yep.
One more follow-up. Did he share any substantive topics that are aspirational draft bills in the making?
Raise the age. Raise the age is going to come back. I remember him speaking of that one. I'm sorry, I was recovering from COVID, so I'm trying to remember exactly what happened that day. I was trying to take notes, and we all know how well that goes. But raise the age is a big one that's coming back. There are a few other crime bills that will come back, but they're not nearly as big as what happened last session. Sorry, I can't be more in detail than that right now.
Did you? Sorry, Aiton, a follow-up again, and I know you just said, but I'm just going to push and see if you actually have a sense. Are those reform-minded bills?
Yes.
Is your sense of raise the age and crime bills?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're more than welcome. Thank you for asking. Grant and then Judge Davenport.
Yeah, I was gonna say that I think I remember somebody mentioning that we can, as individuals, contact our legislators personally and talk to them.
Sheila
And
came up
I
with that.
think that we have like a pretty solid number of people representing, geographically different regions, and maybe we can get some help that way.
Okay. Yep. Good idea. Thank you. Judge Davenport.
Yes, I just so happens that I just listened to that meeting of the Joint Legislative Oversight, Judicial Oversight Committee. I heard your testimony, Eitan. you just laid it right out there for them. And they were receptive. They were receptive. But you didn't mince words.
No.
I did listen later after you testified and hopefully went to the hospital with COVID. Um, Commissioner Winters testified. And this goes to Rebecca's question about raise the age. So Commissioner Winters is the commissioner of DCF. He said they have significant concerns about the April 1st. DCF has significant concerns about the April 1st deadline for 19-year-olds to to be treated as delinquents, other than, of course, the ones that are charged with the Big 12 or the Big 13 or whatever you want to call that list. And that they have been looking at things that they think that work with raise the age, and things that they think don't work. And they are having preliminary discussions with legislators, unspecified who, about changes with respect to the juvenile system and the youthful offender system. And so it sounded to me like the administration is perhaps going to be coming in. This is not what I think Martin Lalonde's raise the age legislation would be about, but it does sound like there may be some competing legislation from the administration with respect to not only the April 1 date, implementation date, postponing that, but also with respect to changes in the juvenile system and the youthful offender system. But he was not specific, and he said that he was asked whether the report that was due at the end of November, which has probably already been filed. I haven't read it, but he was asked whether that report would lay out what changes they wanted. And he said, nope, the report will not cover that. So that's, but that basically summarizes at least what I heard in his testimony.
I should have stayed.
You should have stayed, but you needed to go to the hospital.
I did.
Yeah.
Oh, good. There's the report. Wow. Thank you, Todd. Folks, the report for Act 40 is in the chat. So, the link and so on. So, please feel free to get it from there. Everybody see what I'm talking about? Good. Okay. Good evening, Mark.
Hey, Eitan, good evening. Good evening, all. And yeah, I'm sorry I'm running late. I was actually over at the Richard Kemp Center trying to get everybody settled for chess night. So good
It
to see.
happens. Okay. Anything else before we go forward? Okay. One of the things that I was wondering, and I've sort of been talking with Representative Arsenault. I've been on email threads with her, Coach Christie, and someone else I don't know. Never mind. But about
It was
Pardon?
me. It was me.
Hi. With Representative Burrows. All these new friends. Okay. I am thinking, and and sort of talking coach and stuff, that it might be helpful for us to get some, if not draft language, bullet points out. And I would like to spend time, that's what I would like to do tonight. I'd like to get some stuff out. Again, no guarantees anything's making it in, but I would like to talk through what we might think of as some of the real hallmarks, some of the real foundational requests, even that this bill regarding equity impact assessments would have, or should have, rather. I will point out, I don't think I'm stealing anyone's thunder, Grant, I believe you were the one who said that you thought that they should be written by the sponsor of the bill. Am I right on that? That it was you? No? Okay. Somebody said that to me. Derek? I don't know. Someone said, I think it should be the sponsor of the bill that's responsible for the equity impact assessments. And so that was one idea. Now, I'm not saying now that we're voting in some formal way, the way we do for reports before we hand them in. I'm not. I'm just, even if the ideas are contradictory, I think putting them down and starting to put a verbal, written document together is actually going to be useful for getting this out there as quickly as possible. And I think it has to move fairly quickly. That is one impression I've been getting over and over again, is that this is going to have to go relatively quickly, and God only knows what it'll look like after everyone's done with it. I mean, and I'm like not even talking about crossover, right? So, does anyone want to start? Does anyone have another idea that they'd like to pursue? Okay. I would say that in order to minimize or ameliorate any appearance or presence of bias, equity impact assessment should accompany blank bills. And I say blank there because I don't think that they will perhaps need to be put together on all of them. Am I wrong?
Why wouldn't we have them on all of them? What,
Let's see.
other than time and capacity, which is the thing. Why wouldn't we?
I think time was probably going to be one of my big reasons to say that would be militating against it. But you raise a very good point. Raise a good point.
It's about, the last time we spoke, it's about, we need a culture shift. And I think some of us agree with that we need a culture shift. And what I mean by that is the government, the people, the representatives, we all who are involved in all that need a culture shift. And the culture shift is trying to effectively and efficiently create bills, but also not with discarding the process that needs to happen, because the final outcome will only be as good as the process. And so I think that as we have these discussions, it is always going to come up of time and money, what we need to push through. There will always be an argument of like, we need to get that bill through this year though, or X, Y, and Z. And I don't agree or disagree with that, but I think that if we're in that mindset as we move forward, then it's going to be hard to move forward.
Got it.
And I feel like there are some sacrifices that have to be made in terms of understanding what we're trying to do here. And yes, somebody did say for the bill to go with the person writing the bill. I'm sorry, I forgot what the name is. And I was
Sponsor.
the person who agreed. Thank you. I was one of the people who agreed with it. So yes, I think that that's a good start. That if you're creating or presenting a bill, then you as that person who's presenting that should have gone through these checks and balances as at least a first person to go through that, is my opinion. Whether it's a team, whether it's a series of peoples as it goes through, whatever it is, I think starting there would be good.
Okay. I like that. I wrote it down. Anybody else? I'm sort of taking notes on this as best I can. Go for it, Susanna.
Yeah, there's really an issue of quality control that is difficult to get around. There's going to be a wide variation in the quality of IAs received back, impact assessments received. And we could choose to accept that and just deal with it and have probably a significant number of slipshod and poorly reasoned and poorly researched, poorly informed IAs coming back, or we could insist on better, but that's hard and that's a multi-year type of phase in. It may end up creating an unintended consequence if we have people who are asked to do them who may, for whatever reason,
Not want to.
not want to, or just not be able to, right? This may be an accessibility issue, right? A lot of things to consider here. I think that if I were putting on my imagination hat and pretending to be a bigoted legislator and was now being forced to do one of these, I would do a not good job. I probably wouldn't give much consideration to questions about whether disparities might arise from whatever I'm proposing, because why would I admit that? And I think that unless the rest of us are critically engaging with these submissions and calling out lack of information, poor information, misleading information, or whatever, and then demanding that something be done about it as the bill continues to go through the process, if we're not doing all of that, then the exercise is not as meaningful as it should be. And all of that checking is time consuming, and we'd have to know kind of who owns that, who's responsible for making sure that these are well done and that they're not full of lies or omissions. And that's difficult. I think that if we were a state like, I'm not even going to name states, if we were like some other states where you've just got dozens and hundreds of people who are closely watching this and who are deeply invested in what's going on in the state house, who are willing to put in that kind of work because they're getting paid six figures to do it, then I wouldn't worry as much. But we're small, and I think that we have to really be ambitious about implementing this kind of a policy because I think it's necessary, but also be realistic about how we're going to be able to do that. Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts, but I'll leave it at that. I'm not saying that this should not be the strategy, but I think that there needs to be more with it, because even if you get, the speaker and the pro tem and whoever else to agree that this is now a mandate, who's doing quality control?
Right. Sheila and then Lisa.
Thank you, Eitan. Thank you,
Sure.
Saldana. I totally agree with everything that you said, and I have some thoughts about that. I think we should have a 1-3-5 phase out. I absolutely agree. And since I'm already been here, and I think I've been here for 7-9, I don't even know how many years I've been here doing this, then I would invest my time on this panel to do that work. That, I think, would be some valuable work. Not that we're not doing lots of valuable work here. I want to make that really clear. But that would be an invested valuable work that I think this committee and group could do. When you ask Susanna about, where's that work, we're going to do that, that's the type of stuff that I would like to see this committee do. For example, just to be clear what I'm talking about, okay, everybody gets that equity assessment, right? And at the end of the day, all the bills that go through either get a check mark that they completed it or check mark that they didn't. All of those come to us, and we get to look at them and give feedback, whether that's feedback 1-5, whether that's feedback A through F, or whether that's feedback, whatever we want to do. We get to assess that and see that. And then we get to see over years, ooh, this person, interesting. And because the reality is, I 100% agree with you. And when we talk about people with access and different abilities, that is a little bit different, a caveat. I want to make that point. But when we're just speaking about the representatives as a whole, I think being able to it's one, a culture shift, and two, a tool and an exercise that takes reps to build. Like, I know as an ED, I've put certain things in place in my organization that seem even simplistic, and it can take months to years to actually get that thing down. And so this is big government, right? And so it's not gonna, they're not going to come through with an A+ yacht, right? Is that what it's called? IA, whatever, you know what I'm talking about. So they're not going to come through. Nobody, and if somebody does, we're voting for them next year, you know? But the reality is that most people are not going to do that, you know, and no matter how great they are. And so this is a part of where you build that and you start to understand, and you start to understand the tool, and we edit the tool based on needs or whatever it is, but we have to start from somewhere. So I think that yes, it's a big plan, and we're talking about 1, 3, 5, 10 years in order to have that culture shift, because I'm thinking about the generations. I own a home here, I have grandbabies here. I'm not just thinking about myself. And so I want that generation to have some stuff. So I would be interested in that type of work. So
Okay.
thank you, Donna, for your suggestions.
Lisa.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm sorry, I should have asked this earlier, but can you provide a little context about this assessment? I'm not familiar with it. It's my first meeting, so just a
Yes,
little
that's true.
historical knowledge would be helpful.
I'm actually probably not the best person. Susanna, do you want to field that?
Yeah, I can help. So in 2020, the Office of Racial Equity developed a tool that is referred to as an impact assessment tool. We call it an IA tool. It's essentially a questionnaire that ensures that we're asking ourselves the right questions when we come up with a new policy or budget proposal. In 2020, it was made mandatory for all new budget and policy proposals in the executive agencies. The governor's office will not greenlight something that you're asking for if it is not accompanied by an IA. This is something that our office has wanted to see rolled out in all of the branches of state government. And we have been doing a lot of ground softening, trying to get people on board with it. The legislature we see as an extremely critical part of that, and a really necessary place where these assessments need to be happening. But so to date, we have not been successful in getting a commitment to adopt impact assessments as part of a process. The conversation the RDAP has been having for a few months now has been whether we should recommend or support legislation that would mandate the use of an IA tool. And we have a representative who has been part of these discussions and has committed to being willing to sponsor that kind of a bill. And we're thinking about the parameters. Some of the big questions that have been raised are who would be responsible for completing them? What would they contain? What topic areas would they need to cover? And we've sort of been discussing that.
Which actually gets us, to another question that I have. Since I can play this 6 ways from Sunday from one angle or another, like for last session, we would have needed, I don't know, the Department of Defense in terms of personnel to go through these things, not merely because of the number of the bills, but also because, as you guys have been pointing out this evening, that they change through time. And that they obviously are going to require being looked at different stages of their existence, from drafting to passage. I think I if anyone sees other boundaries, please speak now. But I'm just last year that would have been huge. It would have been a huge number of people.
Aton,
Yes.
I had thought about that, and though I agree that I like to see through the whole process, I think that can be limited potentially to the introduction and into right before the passage. So at the beginning, when somebody is, doing it, can give the initial feedback of A, B, and C, and this is go at it, this is what it should have, and then come back to us with the final product. And that's where it gets into, not everybody's going to get an A+, but we've had the opportunity to put that out there of the expectations of the bill. The whole point is we're going to get to see it. That's one of our first steps. Just that would be a miracle. You know
Right.
what I mean? So never mind to accompany it with the IA. Sorry about that, Susanna. I got it now. So, but so I think like it's hitting a whole bunch of things that we're asking for anyway. One, to see a bill, one, to track it, two, to have those people, whatever, all the things that we've been talking about. If we set up a process like this, it could be potentially possible. And I also wonder where we got some players on here, right? We got some reps on here. I mean, I don't know exactly why you chose to be here. Maybe you all said that when you got on here or whatever. But let's just assume you're here because you care about this stuff, right? And so that meaning that then maybe you all can be leaders. You could be like, follow the leader. You can all be leaders and be like, yo, colleague over here, I got this IA. I think that we should really start using it. We create either those pool of people who are already down to be the trainers that can be an additional to what Susanna was saying. There's some training and webs and slideshows and all that stuff that they got to help us out. And then you all can be champions to help create that culture that we're trying to create in the legislature. I mean, we have resources sitting here right here in these boxes. And so I don't know, it's just an idea that if people are really invested in what we're talking about, and that's why we're here. I mean, I've been here for a lot of years. Then let's do this. Talk to your colleagues. Let's do this. Come on. It's about everybody want to be popular, right? Make this the popular thing.
Thanks. Good point. Thank you. Judge Davenport, your hand's been oh, she's gone now. Nope, there it is. There she is. You had your hand kind of floating up, so
I'm here. I'm a former legislator. That was a long time ago. But I think this could be a tremendous educational tool for legislators. I think that just because an individual legislator doesn't see the impact that their proposed legislation is going to have from using an equity lens, that they may not see that the sponsor of the bill, but then the committee looks at
right.
the IA and they say, wait a minute, and they start asking the question, those questions that should have been asked in the first place. But some of it is just going to come initially the people who legislators who don't understand how what they're proposing has an impact. Those legislators are going to learn that, no, this is a question you really need to think through and you need to be talking to some people about. And you can't just say, no, it's not going to have any impact. And then, in fact, their colleagues turn to them and say, but yeah, it does. And their colleagues wouldn't have done that if you didn't have this IA to start with. Anyway, I just think it will raise question. It will get people to start asking those questions that you want them to ask.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Susanna.
Yeah, thank you. I think another piece of this that we should be thinking about is scope. So I know this group has talked about, should we limit this recommendation to being just related to the criminal legal system? And because that is the scope of this panel, that does make sense. From our office's perspective, we would want to see it across all of the, across all of the legislature and its whole process. So we would probably advocate for that more broadly. But even if we were to think about scope being just limited to criminal legal matters, I think that we would also need to understand the interconnectedness of different topics and how something that doesn't appear to be directly, like it's not going to come out of the judiciary committees necessarily, but it will still be meaningful. And one example of where they didn't use an IA a few years ago and it caused a racial disparity was the Tobacco 21 legislation, right, where they criminalized the possession of tobaccos by minors under 21. It has a racial disparity because, the indigenous community sees tobacco as a sacred plant. And so that ended up criminalizing young people from that community. That was something that probably we would have noticed as a group because it created a criminal penalty. We probably would have seen it and looked at an IA on it. But for example, let's say we're looking at something having to do with, I don't know, public transit or something. That may end up being a proposal that down the line has a consequence. It's like, hey, you know, something, a person may get violated on their conditions of release because they can't get to somewhere because the bus line no longer passes by. I mean, I don't know, I'm making it up, but the point is, I think downstream consequences that are pertinent to this committee's work may not originate in committees that we would be thinking of. And so we'd have to have a really, really broad view. And so I just want us to think about that in terms of, again, that quality control. You're signing up for a lot more than that. The other thing that I was going to say was, you know, I think that when we're talking about, you know, A+ work, I'm looking at it in two hemispheres. The first is whether the response is accurate, versus whether the response is good, right, or well written or whatever. I think I'm less concerned about quality writing than I am about the substance, right? Are we creating disparities? And so I think that in some senses, we should allow for variation in what we get back, as long as it's all sort of accurate and we can work with that. But I think that there's a lot of short-sightedness, willful or not, in this state, that people are going to miss things. And I worry that if we don't have enough, not just having the right people, but enough of the right people, because it's like you said, right? A bill changes, they put in an amendment, and then all of a sudden it creates a new disparity. And then who's looking at it from a disability lens? Who's looking at it from a poverty lens? Who's looking at it? So it's a lot. And I think that we're really going to want to have somebody's got to pay for somebody to do this work. I don't see a way around it. Somebody's going to have to come up off some money.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm putting that down. Representative Burrows, go ahead while I'm typing myself a note.
I know I'm not supposed to, this isn't my time to talk, but I just want to add one facet, which is that last biennium we had a supermajority. The Democrats had a supermajority, and that caused twice as many bills to be submitted. And now that we don't, we can go back to which also caused shoddy work in it put pressure on committee chairs to take up more bills, and therefore caused shoddy work in the committees. And now that we don't have that anymore, I think it'll be a much more reasonable pace.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. Susanna, I remember raising, and please, everyone I'm not committed to anything. I'm really just throwing stuff out right now, just trying to be generative. Last meeting, there was a discussion about the potential of using the advisory panel for the division to do some of this work. Is that still an idea that makes sense? Or is that something that really should die a hard death really quickly? You know what I mean.
I wasn't one of the people who originally thought that it did make sense, but I will.
No, I was. I just.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, well, okay, so that's a 7-member group. And their primary purpose in statute, as currently written, is to support the work of the division and advise the division and look at the division's work product and make recommendations based on it. I think that if anything, if we were going to look at the division, and this is me kind of responding in the moment to your question, so it may not be the most good, but correct, and advise the RDAP. I think if we were going to look at the Division of Racial Justice Statistics or its accompanying advisory panel to do this kind of thing, it would make sense to seat that work in the division, not the panel or council, I think. But obviously the division would need to be staffed up. This group knows better than anyone. The RDAP recommended 5 staff for the division, and we got 3 for the existing workload. So, you know, of course, we'd need to adjust that if we were to add this to it. I think what makes more sense is to spread this work out. Equity is everyone's job, and we probably shouldn't warehouse it in the Office of Racial Equity. And we have subject matter experts, I think, in other parts of the state who could contribute a more meaningful, knowledgeable analysis to some of these bills than maybe we could. So I think it might make sense to look at a model. This is the wrong word, but like a federated, that's the wrong word, but you know what I mean? Spread it out more. But again, you know, that means we really have to hold people to a standard that creates some level of reliability, because you want people to be able to trust that, you know, this is.
And it gets back to what you said at the end of your last comment. We need money. I mean, we just can't assume that people are going to go, oh gosh, I can work for the state for free. That sounds like fun. Yeah. As opposed to, oh, I have an operation without anesthetic scheduled. Grant. You have your hand up. Are you there, Grant? Not Grant. Jesus gods. I need a vacation.
I'll put my
Whatever
glasses
the guy
next
without
week.
the glasses.
I'll put the glasses on next week.
Yeah, I'm this is not working for me. I'm sorry.
Totally fine. I was just, and I am just, you know, this is only my second meeting, so I'm kind of getting a sense of this group, but I'm wondering two things. One, I think Mark last time raised the question about, you know, a lot of us are appointees, a lot of us are here as designees of elected officials, and how that impacts, you know, sort of the positions one takes on this committee. And that got me thinking along the lines that Susanna is talking about, in terms of, you know, where could this work lie? And this may just be the lawyer part of me, but I was like, well, this is a legislative process, and many of us are executive branch employees. There's a funky dynamic within that, let alone kind of making an assessment. Maybe it's appropriate, maybe it's not. And the other piece I was thinking about is Ledge Council, right, has to look at all the bills, they draft all the bills. Is there some kind of symbiotic relationship to build there, whether it's education from RDAP, you know, sort of helping implement the process through an existing organ within the legislative branch? But just wanted to think in other ways about how to use existing systems and begin to shift the underlying system, not try and layer something on top, which to me feels a little additive and not transformative, but I don't want to suggest too much there.
No, I hear that. I hear, I just, no, I'm being conservative and should shut up. Anybody have anything else? Because I just,
John, this is Rebecca.
hi, Rebecca.
Hi. I cognizant of the time, not just tonight and the hour, but the month before this. And I understand our goal is to give some guiding principles so that a bill could be drafted.
Yes.
For what it's worth, and moving us towards perhaps a vote at some point. Maybe we have to do it before our next second Tuesday of January of the new biennium. I don't know.
Oh,
I'll leave
God.
that to you and others. But my point is, I want to wait. Like, I think my overall suggestion on this topic was to see if we could land as a panel on some broad-based concepts, knowing that there are all these concerns, knowing that there are all these political realities and economic hardships and all of these things, and we don't have the expertise to get and provide the answers that everyone is smartly identifying. I think following that, I want to share and join other voices and thoughts that have been made tonight. One, for what it's worth, and I don't know who was speaking just now. Was that Todd?
Yeah.
Okay, so my comment on that is, I think that Sheila's point, and I think it was Ton, your suggestion about the advisory panel of the division.
Mm-hmm.
I want to weigh in that I think that whatever quality control body considers this as a check, it's critical to have community members and not just sort of subject matter experts, however that can be defined, but I fear government and think tanks, right? To me, that's a fundamental principle. And so what I love about hearing from Sheila and Ton, you're pointing to groups that have inherently a build that is including community. And as to Todd's point about the makeup of this panel being also government members and executive members, and I'm of course from the Office of the Defender General, which is a member of the executive branch, but independent in different ways from other government reps, considering that we represent individuals. I also see a value added, and again, from my perspective of years on this panel, having this mix, because we come in with our different perspectives, right? And so we can share and almost efficiently bring the different perspectives in one place so that we can come together. And it's phenomenally exciting that we have been able to come up with reports after reports that have been unanimous pretty much. I mean, there's been some exceptions. So I don't know if we should primarily dismiss the idea that just because there are some government members that shouldn't be replaced. But in any event, I would want and hope that we can get to a forward-moving place, A, land on some key concepts, B, community involvement in terms of making sure accuracy is critical. And I love the culture change and maximizing. We shouldn't be undercutting our proposal based on concerns about economic realities or resource realities. If we want it to be done, then we should do it and go big.
Okay. Could we have some focused discussion here for a moment, all of us, on Rebecca's idea to land as a panel on some of these broad-based concepts? Just, I would like to get,
So can you just, yes,
okay.
I'm agreeing to that. Could you name them and then maybe we can do a thumbs up if we're interested or whatever you're trying to look for? Is there a certain
Sure.
kind of thing you're looking for? Like, are we interested in pursuing this? Thumbs up or is that what you mean by that?
I think what I'm meaning is something that we could say, here are some things that we, given that there are vagaries to this process, to say the very least. Here are some very broad fundamental concepts regarding this bill that we consider to be really indispensable. And if we could put those down in bullet points, that would be beautiful. I think that would give them a lot to start with. It's not that I don't think the rest of this, I mean, this is going to be critical because this is, I think what people are outlining here, or what we've been outlining here, is really going to be the fodder for a lot of the legislative discussions that this thing could bring up. So, but I would like to get, if we're going to do those broad ideas, let's just put them down. Go ahead, Sheila.
I'm sorry if I'm not understanding.
That's okay. I may be weird.
Are you saying how I am, a way that I'm interpreting what you're saying is to make a prioritized summary list of what would be important for us, and I feel like that would be based on the IA. So I feel like having that as a tool to go through, and if we have to say these are non-negotiable, is that really what you mean? Because we could come up with non-negotiables, but if those are already on the IA, I would like to use that as a base tool to have this discussion, if that's what you're actually asking of us.
Sounds good to me. It's pretty flawless logic.
I'm interpreting that as having two components. The first being the substantive non-negotiables, and then the second being the procedural or philosophical non-negotiables. So, for example, one thing that we always stress to people is these need to be conducted as early as possible in the ideation phase. You shouldn't be using it as a final check after your thing is already fully baked, et cetera, as a check the box exercise. The problem with that, or rather the conflict of compatibility that I see with the legislative process, is that the legislative process moves so quickly that if you do an assessment and you discover that there might be a disparity created, oftentimes the proponent is just going to push it forward because we're trying to get to crossover, we're trying to get to this, we're trying to get to that. And the purpose of a tool like this is the exact opposite. It's when you discover there may be a disparity, you stop, you reassess, you reformulate. And so I think what I would say, if we're using the term non-negotiable, what I would say is you will need to slow the heck down, and there needs to be a protocol, or at least the expectation that if there's a disparity surfaced or whatever through the impact assessment, that it's either addressed before that. How do I say this? Committees should be expected to explain themselves if they push out a bill if there's an unresolved disparity created.
Okay, I'm writing that. Give me a sec.
Good, then I'll keep talking while you're writing. Because here's the
Go for
problem, right? Is that half the time we say, oh, hey, committee, there's this thing and it's going to create a racial disparity. Maybe you don't want to do that, Kay, please, thanks. And the response that we often get is, oh, we'll fix it in January, or, oh, they'll fix it in the House, they'll fix it in the Senate. And so what you're effectively saying to me when you say that is, yes, hi, we know that there's a justice component here that's not right, but we're motivated by something other than justice to push this forward. So we're just going to do that. And we'll just leave the justice for later. And so, yeah.
Yeah. Still, I think that there's value in getting some of these broad-based concepts down from the assessment itself, which I probably don't have right here at the moment. Sheila, go ahead while go for it.
I think that our next meeting or right now, what do we have? We actually have exactly an hour left. Well, I can't remember what else was on the agenda, but we need to go over it as a group together. None of us, we've never gone over the IA as a group really together. We haven't done that work. We need to all be familiar with it, go through it, understand it more, really understand what we're asking for. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe everybody has thoroughly gone
No.
knows what's up. But I think that is, we need to invest in ourselves so then we can invest in the others who are going to be doing that work. And so it's a mutual kind of thing. And so I will admit that I'm not as familiar with it. I don't know, Susanna, if you're willing to give us I know that you gave us a little overview of some stuff in the past, but I don't know if you're willing to do something at our next meeting or something, or even bring up the training and things more thoroughly. I don't know if we want to be trained, so we understand what the training is and what it's about, and things like that. I think that would be useful, whether we spend this time during this doing that and it's on public view, or whether we get the link and try to have it as a homework expectation. I don't know. I feel like in order to hold other people accountable, I need to even be more familiar, not be as feeling as ignorant as I do around the assessment, because I'm not in the weeds. That isn't something I'm in the weeds about per se. So I would like to gain some more reps in that and understand it, so I can be really confident in sharing what my prioritizations would be.
Then
if we have to do that.
that seems perfectly reasonable to me. Representative Burrows, do you see any reason for us to push beyond what is feeling like a kind of natural break here? And I ask you that because of time, legislative time.
Do you mean wait until in the context of waiting until January to have training on the impact assessment?
No. That Sheila just recommended that we all, the panel here,
Yep.
take time to go through the assessment in order to identify the broad-based concepts that Rebecca brought up even earlier than that.
Right.
And this, we're at a moment right now, it's actually 7:15, and we could take this as a natural break and then, in fact, worry about getting that assessment out as an email to people so that they can take a look at it before the next meeting, make notes on it, et cetera, et cetera. And then come to that meeting ready to go with it then, which is what I'm sort of leaning towards. But I'm also asking you, Representative, because I know how quickly everything moves. I also know that the session doesn't begin really until the 8th this year.
True. And also I just was looking at, because I was explaining to some of my constituents what our actual timeline is. And we only have until January, by the Rules Committee this year, we only have until January 25th to submit a long form bill.
Okay.
So I don't know.
Right.
Keep that in mind as you think through that.
I think we should go for that. If no one else is feeling, I mean, I'm assuming you're all following where we're going here. So if no one else, I think we should risk it. I really do. Because I completely agree with Sheila about if we're holding others accountable, we got to know exactly what we're holding them their accountability to. I would say we should just stop now, and I will, Susanna, if you and I could like talk tomorrow early or something about, and then I can get that out to everybody, and we can start from there. That's my temptation right now. And I'd like to hear somebody say, no, stop. We want to talk about this for another half hour or something. But none of you are saying that. Okay, then. I take that as a clue. No, hold on. I knew you were. I knew it, Mark. I knew it. I just want to know, everyone to know, I knew he'd raise his hand right now. Mark?
Thanks, Eitan.
Sure.
Shout out Nikki Giovanni.
Yes, indeed.
I want to go back to that email that went out on the 18th of November.
Yep.
To yourself and Tyler and
Yep.
Sheila and Rebecca and Susanna and Laura and Tiffany and Nader and Martin. It was regarding a conversation that we had last meeting.
Yeah.
I think the last thing I put on it was I was asking you to consider adding this discussion to this agenda.
Right.
I respect your prerogative in choosing not to do so. But I'd be
It was not
remiss.
malicious.
Doesn't matter what it was, still your prerogative. Where we left off at that is that there was a discussion about a report on the findings related to racial disparities in Vermont's youth justice response.
Yes.
That was the 2021 report.
Right.
We call this OJJDP data. The 5 data points: arrest, diversion, pretrial detention, secure confinement, and transfer to adult courts. And I think the conversation that we were having the last time we were together was the benefit of trending those data.
Mm-hmm.
So we can see, so we can understand where we're going. We can baseline.
Right.
So we can also measure our progress, so we can adequately inform our mitigation strategies and
Right.
hold another accountable in the work that we're doing. it would seem that this would be relevant in this discussion, particularly in light of the fact that there may be times where there may be discussions in committee towards concerns surrounding the potential that there could be disparities created by judiciary, by legislative decisions. One of the ways that we'd be able to reflect that is the trend analysis of the data. That is to say, let's just say over a period of time, we could see if we were able to make a point in time, create a point in time where a certain legislative decision was made, we'd be able to see whether or not there was a significant impact on those data as it trends over time. So these are things I believe in Title 20, 2358 through 2366, I think would be, there'd be maybe some good language that could be potentially implemented. I think it was noted in the minority report, and it was also noted in the regular report back over 6 years ago, that it would be a good idea to collect data in these across all of these systems. And it was also noted in deliberation in quite a bit of deliberation before Christine and I turned over.
Right.
So that would be something that this panel could make a recommendation towards in terms of modifying enabling statute that would impact the executive branch. And it seems like it would be probably harder to wrestle with, because it's harder dealing with our own house. It's easier to look at somebody else's house and say, let's deal with the judicial, or let's deal with the legislature. But I would just strongly recommend that what this body might consider is perhaps taking a look at what it would take to identify some of those data points and call them out and begin to just, even if it's just, a small number of high impact, high discretion data points that looking at in each one of those 7 or 8 areas across the criminal and juvenile justice system. It looks like we have the ones for juvenile, or at least, even if this panel does not decide to go that route, I think it would at least do this process an abundance of justice for you to deliberate it. I'm not speaking for the on an advisory capacity for the advisory, that data, whatever thing that is that we're on, Susanna. I'm just speaking just as Mark, just trying to put forward some of the best advice that I can in terms of helping us really make some progress with this body in terms of like where we want to be in the next 7 years, 2 months, and 3 weeks. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hey, Don, can I jump in to follow up on that,
Please,
or someone else?
go for it, Rebecca.
Thank you, Mark, for bringing that email that you sent around to some of us back in the front burner tonight. And I would request that we add this to our agenda. I think what Mark's point is actually a real reminder that RDAP still is actively statutorily involved with that data division advisory. I'm sorry,
Yes.
I'm losing also the name of it, but that we have a statutory obligation to work with each other to hear about how that's going in the context of RDAP's prior reports and our recommendations about trying to understand by data collection the high discretionary points that we have previously identified. And we went so far as to identify the highest interest points, data collection points.
And
this
repeat
report them. And repeat them. And so I think that it's absolutely part of our core obligations to check in on that and to build that into our agenda. And this report from DCF, which I had not seen until Mark forwarded, so I appreciate that as well, is a great prompt to see where we're at. And even Susanna, if it's well, we have to build, we have some people, we're trying at least to remember what was the collection request and our goals on that. So anyways, Eitan, I don't know how full our agenda is going to be, but for next month, but I would ask that we add that.
Yeah,
That's
no,
on.
I got it. I was
Hey, Ty.
hoping tonight, but Tyler was indisposed.
Can I just add a little bit more to that, just to say that we were able to get our hands on 3 of those reports. We couldn't, we being the folks that are doing data at the Alliance, we noticed that the data points had changed from over 1 year to another. The format of the data as it was collected was not in, there was a variance in the format in terms of whether it was percentages or whether it was just numbers, and so there were some variances in the manner in which the data were reported, and it rendered us unable to really create a sufficient trend to report out on. So we do have a list of recommendations back to the folks for over at Children and Families and Juvenile Justice. I get that all mixed up. That would enable us, if we were to go back and take those recommendations, to be able to develop a more consistent approach to put us in a position to begin to create trending reports over a period of time. As I said the last time I was on, to my knowledge, all the way back to when Teresa was gathering this information back in 2000, and I think it was 15. I recall report outs to the OJ that were OJJDP report outs. It's just that we haven't been collecting the data in any consistent manner to enable us to be able to sufficiently trend it. And hopefully we can do that and moving forward in that category as well as others, because that's the only way we're going to be able to measure our progress. And I really would love to measure our progress.
Others. Okay, that is on the agenda for next month. Anything else? No. Okay. So there's going to be a lot of emailing going on. Todd, one big question that we have is the open meeting. I just get so irritated with this. I sound like, I don't know, some Francisco Franco or something, but it's just like, I love transparency. I also love efficiency. There's got to be some meeting of the minds here. I was told that there are changes coming as of January. Is that in fact true? Like, in other words, go ahead.
I'm happy to look into that. I'm not aware of direct changes coming to the open meeting law, but I can follow up on that pretty quickly.
No, changes. I misspoke. Changes in the sense that there were dispensations made, alterations made for the pandemic. They've been in effect. And the rumor, at least as far as I know, is that they're going out of effect in January.
Right. In terms of how frequently one would have to meet and a body would have to meet in person versus virtually and the like.
Hell if I know.
Yeah.
You know more in that one sentence than I do.
I'm happy to do a little more follow-up on that. That's the Secretary of State's office, I think.
Right.
Anyway, you don't care where it comes from. I will follow up with you and we can.
Okay. I mean, I know it is the Secretary of State, but yes, because we need
to
issue.
I think after those legislative changes this past session, the Secretary of State's office did issue some guidance, and I have a link. I'm going to dig it up and put it in the chat. I don't know if it will satisfactorily answer our question here, but maybe we can start with that.
Because, and the only reason I brought that up right now is because I'm sending all this stuff out to people. We're not allowed to discuss it as individuals somehow. I don't understand how you discuss something as an individual, but in any event, we need to bring it back and have the full discussion here in December. Whatever month this is. You know me. I don't know where I am.
Hey, Tom, can you please explain that? I'm not quite sure I understand what you just said.
We got in trouble because we were doing all these different things online. That we would read stuff online, things were in Google Docs or equivalent, people were commenting such. It enabled us to put together quite a capacious report this time, in fact. And then I believe it was Aaron Jacobson who first raised the issue about whether or not that was in fact legal. Okay. So I'm going to proceed as though it is. And then if I get in trouble, that's why there's Vermont Legal Aid. And I can't read. But I'm going to send this stuff out anyway because we can't really talk about it individually, and it'll all be we'll all talk about it when we thank you, Mark. We'll talk about it when we get back together in the new year. And so that is my gut right now telling me that this is the best way to move forward, is to send you homework. Reading homework. Okay? People good with this? Indicate somehow. Okay. Good. Hearing from the panel. Good. Sheila, Rebecca, Farzana. Okay. Great. Thank you, Susanna. All right. So great. Thank you, Judge Morrissey. All right. So that's what I will do. I will get all this back out to you. Mark's email. Mark, shall I generally send that out to the whole panel? Okay. Will do.
Please do.
Yeah, I love your spelling. It was very interesting. And so I will send that out. And I'll get on this and we'll start moving ahead. I think we somehow went into new business, which is kind of interesting. I love it. Anybody got more? Oh, I'm blocking things. No. Okay. Then I will dispense with the part of the meeting that always drives poor Jess Bound crazy when I'm like, we should vote to adjourn, blah, blah, blah. Everybody ready to go home and have dinner? Nod your head. Great. Thank you. All right. See you all in January. Have a great Kwanzaa, Christmas, New Year's, all the rest of it. It may be, party like it's 1999, people. See y'all later. Have a good one and thank you.
Bye.
Good night.